right, welcome back to another ETS profile. My name is Christine Richards. I'm the research director of Zpryme. And we're excited to have Tim Fairchild with us today from SAS. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thank you, Christine. It's a delight to be here.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about your role at SAS and what you're working on.
So I'm very privileged to lead the global energy practice at SAS, and I believe with all my heart that energy is the most important industry of all the industries that SAS supports. And it was great to hear that validated from other people today. I heard a great quote that a police chief said that if you don't have electricity, you're on the road to anarchy. And it's just amazing how important it is, just the fundamental structures of our society. And I'm delighted that I get to support that industry at SAS.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be a part of the energy industry and what's going on today. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, there are a lot of new advanced technologies that are coming on board, and Zpryme and SAS have been working on a report around the Internet of Things and machine learning. So talking about this hardware and these software and systems that need to come together to help utilities operate better and more efficiently. So I wanted to talk with you, about some of the pieces of that report. And the first one is, machine learning, Internet of Things. I mean, they've been such buzzwords, and particularly with machine learning. As I've gotten into it, I've learned that, maybe it's not as new as what people think. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a new thing. You can go back a long time and find a lot of work on things like machine learning and specific examples of machine learning. You probably know SAS turns 40 on July 1st. Mm-hmm. And if you go back into the archives of SAS, about 1979, you can find some of the early work that SAS did specifically on machine learning, and the code was written by a guy named Dr. Goodnight, who obviously is our CEO and has been since 1976. So it dates back a long time at SAS, and I think what's exciting though is that there have been a lot of advances in basic commodity hardware that let you do things with your data today that you couldn't do with supercomputers 5 years ago, much less back in the 60s when, kind of SAS had its origins.
Yes, I mean, there are a lot of, the idea around machine learning, has been there for a long time, but some of that technology that's really made it possible, it seems like that's
right, because you can do things very, very quickly. You can use a bunch of data and you can do things very quickly. I saw a stat that a good data scientist can maybe build a couple models a week. A really good data scientist can build a couple models a week. A computer can build thousands of models a week on enormous amounts of data. And all that is really, it's enabled by this explosion in the capabilities of computing hardware.
Yeah, and also the Internet of Things. So when we originally talked about doing this report, we were really going to focus on the machine learning side, and then we realized, well, it'd be great to bring in the Internet of Things and talk about that relationship. So could you talk about that a little bit more? That connection?
So I think the two are very, very connected, and I don't want to spill too much out of this report. Yeah. We want people to read it.
Yes.
But there's some comments in it about just how linked they are, and obviously. When you have the Internet of Things, you have a lot of devices throwing off data. You have the opportunity to go get that data and you can look for patterns in it. And again, the whole idea behind machine learning is let the computer find those patterns in the data. You don't have to tell it where to look.
Yeah, and in the report, we interview 150 utilities about what they're doing in these areas. I mean, what are some areas where you're seeing utilities really get traction around machine learning and the Internet of Things?
So in terms of the early adopters, we're seeing them point those technologies, specifically machine learning, at areas like fraud, predicting asset failure, understanding customers, predicting demand response, targeting demand response. I think those are very obvious things that you would go point that at. There were some interesting findings in the report, and I'll just kind of leave it at that as a teaser of what the survey respondents found as their number one focus area for machine learning, and it's an interesting result.
We're making a trailer for the report here.
And it was interesting that when these same people looked at IoT, they looked at customers.
Yeah.
And when they looked at machine learning, I'll just leave it at this, they looked at assets. And I think that's a really interesting statement.
Yeah.
And it's also an opportunity to, I think, expand where people are looking when it comes to machine learning.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, how do you, obviously the machine learning, IoT, I mean, big buzzwords out there. How do utilities get started? I mean, where do they begin, their journey with some of these areas?
So I think it's like, almost anything else when you talk about models and like the analytic maturity model. A lot of people have different versions of that, different stages. But I think it just starts with having a plan, going out and finding what data you have, and then look at what problems you want to solve. In fact, it probably ought to be the opposite order. Find out what problems you want to solve, and then go find the data, so you don't have a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So thanks for joining us today, Tim. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a delight.